The harsh, fluorescent lights of Blackwell Tower reflected off the polished marble floors as Sofia Mendez knelt, scrubbing at a stubborn coffee stain. At 35, with her raven hair tucked beneath a practical bandana and determination etched into the fine lines around her eyes, she looked like any other invisible worker keeping the prestigious law firm spotless after hours. But Sofia wasn't just another cleaning lady. She was a woman harboring secrets that would soon turn the carefully ordered world of Blackwell, Richmond Associates upside down. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from. And if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. The clock on the wall read 9:47 p.m. as Sofia moved methodically through the 43rd floor, home to the firm's most elite attorneys. Most offices were dark, their occupants long gone to penthouse apartments or dinner reservations at restaurants where the bill would exceed Sofia's daily wage. But from the corner office, light still spilled into the hallway, along with the sound of frustrated voices. "I need this translated by morning, Edwards. The Nakamura merger depends on it." Sofia recognized the sharp, commanding tone of Dominic Blackwell, founding partner and the firm's most feared litigator. His reputation for ruthlessness in the courtroom was matched only by his notorious treatment of those he considered beneath him, a category that included everyone from junior associates to maintenance staff. "Sir, I've called every translator in our network. With the time difference in Tokyo, we simply can't—" "I don't pay you to tell me what can't be done," Dominic cut in. "Find a solution or find another job." Sofia paused, her hand tightening around the handle of her cleaning cart. She should move on, finish her rounds, and catch the 11:15 bus back to her small apartment in the East Side. Getting involved in the affairs of men like Dominic Blackwell never ended well for people in her position. But something kept her frozen in place, perhaps the desperation in the young associate's voice, or the memory of her own dreams deferred. Before she could reconsider, Sofia found herself wheeling her cart toward the open door of Blackwell's office. The space was immaculate, all sleek surfaces and modern furniture that probably cost more than her annual salary. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered a panoramic view of the city lights, a daily reminder to Blackwell of his place above the masses below. Dominic himself stood behind his massive desk, his tailored suit still pristine despite the late hour. 45, with steel-grey eyes and prematurely silver hair, he cut an imposing figure. The young associate, Edwards presumably, looked ready to collapse under the weight of his superior's disapproval. "Excuse me," Sofia said quietly, her slight accent coloring the words. "I need to empty the trash." Blackwell barely glanced in her direction. "Come back later." "It's the end of my shift," she persisted gently. "Building policy." The lawyer's jaw tightened in annoyance. "Fine. Be quick about it." Sofia moved efficiently around the office, keeping her eyes down, as she'd learned to do years ago. People like Blackwell preferred their service workers to be invisible. As she approached the desk, she couldn't help noticing the documents spread across its surface, pages of what appeared to be legal text in Japanese. "This is impossible," Edwards muttered, running a hand through his disheveled hair. "Even if we found someone tonight, these technical terms—" "Perhaps I could help," Sofia said before she could stop herself. The silence that followed was absolute. Edwards looked at her with surprise, while Blackwell's expression shifted from shock to amusement. "You?" he said, a mocking smile playing at his lips. "Our cleaning lady thinks she can translate complex legal Japanese." Sofia straightened, something awakening in her that had been dormant for too long. "I might be able to, yes." Blackwell exchanged a glance with Edwards, then pushed the document toward her with theatrical flourish. "By all means, then, if you're so smart, translate it." His tone made it clear he expected entertainment, not assistance. Sofia set down her cleaning supplies and picked up the document, her eyes scanning the characters with practiced ease. The legal terminology was sophisticated, but not impenetrable to someone with her background. She began to speak, translating the first paragraph smoothly into flawless English. Blackwell's smug expression froze, then crumbled into disbelief as Sofia continued. Edward's mouth actually fell open as she navigated complex clauses about international, intellectual property rights with the precision of a seasoned legal translator. When she finished the first page, Sofia looked up to find Blackwell staring at her as if seeing a ghost. "How?" he began, then cleared his throat. "How do you know this?" "I was a corporate lawyer in Kyoto before I came to America," Sofia replied simply, the weight of her past evident in the straightforward admission. "Specialized in international contracts, actually." Dominic Blackwell, who prided himself on never being caught off guard, was speechless. The cleaning lady he'd barely acknowledged for the past 2 years had just demonstrated expertise that could save the biggest merger in the firm's history. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. What Blackwell couldn't know was how much it had cost Sofia to reveal even this small part of her former life, a life she'd left behind 8 years ago, when circumstances had forced her to flee Japan with nothing but her daughter and the clothes on their backs. "Mr. Blackwell," Edwards prompted, looking between his boss and the cleaning woman with undisguised confusion. Dominic recovered quickly, his calculating mind already shifting gears. "Ms. Mendez, Sofia Mendez. Ms. Mendez, it seems we've underestimated you." His tone remained professional, but Sofia didn't miss the intensity in his gaze as he studied her with new interest. "We find ourselves in need of your particular skills. Would you be willing to help us with this translation? The firm would compensate you appropriately, of course." Sofia hesitated. The money would be welcome, more than welcome with Lucia's. College applications due and their savings dwindling, but stepping back into the world she'd left behind, even in this small way, carried risks she'd spent years avoiding. "I would need to be home by midnight," she said finally. "My daughter." "Of course," Blackwell nodded. "Edwards will arrange for a car service. And regarding compensation—" "We can discuss that after the work is done," Sofia interrupted, her tone making it clear she wouldn't be undervalued. For a fleeting moment, something like respect flickered in Dominic's eyes. "Very well. Edwards, get Ms. Mendez whatever she needs, then make yourself scarce. I'll work with her directly on this." As the young associate hurried to comply, Sofia sent a quick text to her 17-year-old daughter, Lucia, explaining she'd be late. The reply came almost immediately. "Everything okay, Mama? Need me to come meet you?" Sofia smiled at her daughters. "Protectiveness. All fine. Opportunity came up. Tell you later. Love you." 3 hours later, Sofia finished the final page of the translation, her mind exhilarated by the intellectual challenge she'd been denied for so long. Working alongside Blackwell had been unexpectedly engaging. His legal mind was sharp and, once he'd moved past his initial shock, he'd treated her insights with a grudging respect. "This is exceptional work," he admitted, reviewing her notes on a particularly complex clause. "You've caught nuances our regular translators would have missed entirely." "The cultural context matters as much as the language," Sofia explained. "This phrase here, it's about saving face while still enforcing the patent protections. A direct translation misses the intent." Blackwell nodded thoughtfully. "Where did you practice law in Japan?" Sofia tensed, the question venturing too, close to territories she couldn't afford to revisit. It was a lifetime ago, Mr. Blackwell. I should go. My daughter is waiting. Something in her tone must have communicated her boundaries, because Blackwell didn't press further. Instead, he wrote something on a business card and handed it to her. "This is what the firm will pay for tonight's work," he said. The figure he'd written made Sofia's breath catch. It was more than she earned in 2 months of cleaning. "And my private number, should you be interested in similar consulting work in the future." Sofia took the card, careful to keep her expression neutral despite the financial lifeline it represented. "Thank you, I'll consider it." True to his word, Blackwell had arranged a car to take her home. As Sofia settled into the luxurious leather seat, memories she'd long suppressed began to surface. The corner office she'd once occupied at Tanaka and Partners, the respect of colleagues, the satisfaction of work that challenged her mind rather than her body. The driver navigated away from the gleaming downtown towers toward the modest East Side neighborhood Sofia called home. With each block, the buildings grew smaller, the streets narrower, the signs shifting from corporate logos to family-owned businesses with names in Spanish, Vietnamese, and a dozen other languages. Sofia's apartment building was clean but aging, a far cry from the luxury condos near Blackwell Tower. As she quietly unlocked the door to Unit 3B, she found Lucia asleep on the couch, textbooks spread around her, and a half-written essay on her laptop screen. At 17, Lucia was the image of her father, the same warm brown eyes, the same quiet intensity. Thankfully, she had none of his cruelty or his family's ruthless ambition, traits Sofia had worked tirelessly to shield her from. Sofia gently brushed a strand of hair from her daughter's face, thinking of the opportunities Blackwell's offer might provide. Lucia was brilliant, with dreams of attending an Ivy League university, dreams that required money Sofia had never been able to provide despite working multiple jobs. Lucia stirred, blinking sleepily. "Mama, what time is it?" "Late, mi vida. Almost 1. You should go to bed." "How was your opportunity?" Lucia asked, sitting up and studying her mother's face with the perceptiveness that sometimes made Sofia feel transparent. Sofia hesitated, then decided on honesty. "I helped translate some legal documents in Japanese." Lucia's eyes widened. "You used your law background? That's amazing. Was it at the firm you clean?" "Yes," Sofia admitted. "The founding partner needed help with a merger." "And did they pay you properly? Not just cleaning wages?" Sofia smiled at her daughter's protective indignation. "Yes, very properly. Enough that you might be able to apply to Columbia after all." Lucia's face lit up, then quickly sobered. "But isn't this risky? You always said we needed to keep a low profile, that using your credentials might—" "It might," Sofia acknowledged, the old fear creeping back. "But you'll be applying to colleges soon, and we need the money. It was just one night, one translation." But even as she reassured her daughter, Sofia knew she was lying to herself. The intellectual stimulation, the respect in Blackwell's eyes when he recognized her expertise, the comfortable car service instead of the crowded late-night bus, all of it had awakened a hunger she'd denied for too long. "Get some sleep," she told Lucia, trying to ignore the business card burning a hole in her pocket. "We'll talk more tomorrow." The next morning, Sofia arrived at Blackwell Tower for her regular cleaning shift, her mind still spinning from the previous night's events. She'd half expected to be met with some acknowledgement, perhaps a nod from security or a different treatment from the building manager. Instead, everything was exactly the same. The same uniform, the same cart, the same invisible status. She told herself it was better this way. Safer. The anonymity of her position had protected her and Lucia for years. One night of translation. Work didn't change that fundamental reality, but as she made her rounds through the 43rd floor, Sofia couldn't help noticing the buzz of excitement. The Nakamura merger was evidently proceeding, the translated documents having arrived miraculously in time. No one glanced twice at the cleaning lady moving quietly through their midst, certainly never imagining she was responsible for saving their multi-million-dollar deal. When she reached Blackwell's office, she found it empty but immaculate. Clearly, he hadn't spent the night there, as he sometimes did during big cases. Sofia efficiently emptied his trash and was wiping down his desk when the office door opened. "Ms. Mendez!" Dominic Blackwell's voice was controlled, professional. "I was hoping to catch you." Sofia straightened, suddenly conscious of her cleaning uniform and the rag in her hand. "Mr. Blackwell." He closed the door behind him, his expression unreadable. The Nakamura team was impressed with the translation. They specifically commented on the cultural sensitivity of certain passages. "I'm glad I could help," Sofia replied, cautiously. "Help?" Blackwell raised an eyebrow. "You saved a $300 million merger. That goes beyond help." Sofia remained silent, unsure where this conversation was heading. "I've done some thinking," Blackwell continued, moving to sit at his desk. "The firm often deals with international clients, particularly from Japan and throughout Asia. We maintain a roster of translators, but none with your combination of legal expertise and cultural fluency." Sofia tensed. She knew what was coming. "I'd like to offer you a position," Blackwell said. "As a legal translator and cultural consultant, the salary would be—" He named a figure that made Sofia's breath catch. It was more than 10 times what she currently earned. The offer was tempting, dangerously so. With that kind of money, Lucia could attend any university she wanted. They could move to a safer neighborhood, maybe even buy a small house. Sofia could stop working double shifts that left her body aching and her mind numb. But the risks. "I appreciate the offer, Mr. Blackwell," she said carefully. "But I can't accept a position that would require background checks or documentation beyond what I've already provided to the cleaning company." Blackwell's eyes narrowed slightly. "May I ask why?" "No," Sofia replied simply. "You may not." A tense silence filled the office. Sofia expected anger or dismissal. Men like Dominic Blackwell weren't accustomed to having their offers rejected, especially by cleaning staff. Instead, he surprised her. "What if we structured it differently? Independent contractor status, payments through your current employer if necessary. No additional documentation required." Sofia studied him, suspicion mingling with curiosity. "Why would you do that? It's irregular, possibly even against your firm's policies." "Because talent like yours is rare," Blackwell replied without hesitation. "And I've built my career on recognizing valuable assets, regardless of their packaging." The last word made Sofia flinch internally. An asset. Not a person, not a professional. An asset to be utilized. It reminded her painfully of another, powerful man who had once viewed her that way, with devastating consequences. "I'll need time to consider it," she said finally. "Of course." Blackwell handed her another business card. "This has my personal email. If you decide to accept, contact me directly in the meantime." He removed an envelope from his desk drawer and extended it to her. "A bonus for last night's work." The partners were impressed. Sofia accepted the envelope without opening it. "Thank you. I should continue my rounds now." As she pushed her cart toward the door, Blackwell called after her. "Miss Mendez, one more thing." She paused, looking back. "I'm curious. What made you leave law practice in Japan?" The question hit Sofia like a physical blow, memories flooding. Back of the night, she'd fled Kyoto with a 1-month-old Lucia clutched to her chest, terror driving her every step. Of the powerful family that had declared her unworthy of their son, of their name, of any place in their world. Of the threats that had made it clear neither she nor her child would be safe if they remained. Some choices aren't really choices, "At all, Mr. Blackwell," she answered softly. "Sometimes survival requires sacrifice." Something in her tone must have communicated the depth behind her words, because Blackwell nodded slowly, a flicker of genuine curiosity in his eyes. "Indeed, good day, Miss Mendez." That evening, as Sofia prepared a simple dinner in their small apartment, she finally opened the envelope Blackwell had given her. The check inside, a bonus he'd called it, was for $25,000. More money than she'd seen at once since leaving Japan. Her hands trembled as she set it on the kitchen counter. With this money, Lucia's future opened up in ways Sofia had only dreamed of. But accepting it, and especially considering Blackwell's offer of ongoing work, meant risks she'd carefully avoided for 17 years. "Mama," Lucia called, coming into the kitchen. "Are you okay? You look pale." Sofia quickly tucked the check into her pocket. "I'm fine, just tired." Lucia wasn't fooled. Did something happen at work with that lawyer? Sometimes Sofia wished her daughter wasn't quite so perceptive. "He made me an offer to work as a translator and consultant for much more money than I make now." Lucia's eyes widened. "That's amazing. You could use your law background again, your languages." "It's complicated," Sofia cut in gently. "Taking a more visible position could be dangerous." Lucia's expression sobered immediately. She knew parts of their history, that they had fled Japan because of her father's powerful family, that Sofia had given up her career to keep them safe, but not the full extent of the danger or the threats that had driven them across the world. "Because of my father's family?" Lucia asked quietly. "Do you really think after all this time they would still be looking for us?" Sofia chose her words carefully. "Your grandfather is not a man who gives up easily. The Hirokas have resources and connections most people can't imagine. But it's been 17 years, Mama. I don't even carry their name, and we're not in Japan anymore. Power like theirs doesn't stop at borders," Sofia said, the familiar fear tightening her chest. "Takashi Hiroka nearly destroyed our lives once. I won't give him another chance." Lucia was silent for a moment, her expression thoughtful. "But we can't hide forever, can we? I'll be applying to colleges soon. My name will be in databases, on websites if I win scholarships. And I want to study international law someday, like you did." The words pierced Sofia's heart. She'd never wanted her fear to become her daughter's prison, yet that was exactly what was happening. For years, she'd told herself she was protecting Lucia, but perhaps she was only teaching her to live in shadows. "Let me think about Mr. Blackwell's offer," Sofia said finally. "There might be a way to make it work without exposing us." Later that night, after Lucia had gone to bed, Sofia sat at their small kitchen table with her laptop open, the glow of the screen illuminating her tired face. For the first time in years, she typed a name into the search engine, Takashi Hiroka. The results appeared instantly. Recent images of the silver-haired patriarch of Hiroka Industries at corporate events, news articles about the technology, empire he'd built, mentions of his political connections throughout Asia and beyond. His power had only grown in the years since Sofia had fled with his newborn granddaughter. There was no mention of his son, Kenji, Lucia's father. The man Sofia had once loved, who had chosen his family's approval over their relationship when Sofia had become pregnant, who had stood by silently when his father had made it clear that a foreign lawyer was not an acceptable mother for a Hiroka heir and that the problem would be handled one way or another. Sofia had understood the threat for what it was. That night, she'd emptied her bank accounts, taken her passport and the few possessions she could carry, and disappeared. Through networks of women helping women, she'd made her way to America, reinvented herself as Sofia Mendez, and rebuilt a life from nothing, all to keep Lucia safe. And now, Dominic Blackwell's offer threatened to unravel all of it. Sofia closed the laptop, her decision made, Tomorrow, she would tell Blackwell she couldn't accept his offer, return the check, and continue as she had been. Invisible, safe, unremarkable. Lucia might have to attend a state school instead of Columbia, might have to take out student loans, but they would remain protected. But as Sofia prepared for bed, her gaze fell on Lucia's desk, where college brochures and scholarship applications lay neatly organized. Beside them was a photograph, one of the few Sofia had kept from her past life, showing a younger version of herself in formal legal attire, standing proudly outside the Tokyo offices of Tanaka and Partners. Lucia kept it there as inspiration. She'd once told Sofia, a reminder of the woman her mother had been before fear became the organizing principle of their lives. Sofia picked up the photo, tracing the confident smile of the woman she barely recognized anymore. That Sofia had believed in justice, in fighting wrongs, in standing up to power. When had survival become more important than living? With sudden clarity, Sofia realized she couldn't reject Blackwell's offer, not without betraying everything she'd once stood for and everything she wanted for her daughter. Perhaps there was a middle path, a way to reclaim parts of herself without putting Lucia at risk. She would need to be careful, to set boundaries, to control what information became available. But it was time to stop running and start building, something beyond mere survival. Sofia replaced the photograph and went to bed, her mind racing with both possibilities and precautions. For the first time in years, she allowed herself to imagine a future where she was more than just a cleaning lady, where she was, once again, Sofia Tanaka, the brilliant legal mind who had once fearlessly taken on the corporate world. What she couldn't know was that miles away, in a penthouse overlooking the city, Dominic Blackwell was conducting his own search, not for Takashi Hiroka, but for a promising young attorney who had mysteriously disappeared from a prestigious Japanese law firm 17 years earlier, an attorney named Sofia Tanaka. The morning sun filtered through the blinds as Sofia prepared Lucia's breakfast, her mind still churning with the decision she'd made. The check from Blackwell remained on the counter, a tangible symbol of the crossroads she faced. When Lucia emerged from her room, backpack slung over one shoulder, Sofia pushed a plate of eggs toward her. "I've been thinking about Mr. Blackwell's offer," Sofia said carefully. Lucia looked up, her fork paused midway to her mouth. "And I'm going to accept it, but on my terms." Sofia's voice grew stronger with each word. "Part-time consulting only, no public profile, and I'll continue my regular cleaning job as cover." Lucia's face broke into a radiant smile. "Really? You're going to practice law again?" "Not exactly," Sofia tempered. "Translation and cultural consulting. But it's a step." As Lucia hugged her, Sofia felt both terror and exhilaration. She was stepping out of the shadows, just a little, for the first time in 17 years. The risk was calculated, but real. "I have debate team after school," Lucia reminded her. "Don't forget, I need the permission slip signed for the competition next month." Sofia signed the form, pride swelling as she watched her daughter gather her things. Lucia was everything Sofia had sacrificed for. Brilliant, compassionate, ambitious. She deserved a mother who modeled courage, not just caution. After Lucia left, Sofia composed a careful email to Blackwell accepting his offer with specific conditions: limited hours, anonymity within the firm, payments structured through her current employer, and no formal documentation beyond what was absolutely necessary. She hesitated before pressing send, then added one final line: "My acceptance is contingent on your agreement to respect my privacy regarding my background. No questions, no investigations." The response came within minutes. "Terms accepted. Come to my office at 5 p.m. today to discuss your first project." Sofia arrived at Blackwell Tower that afternoon with her cleaning cart as usual, completing her regular duties before making her way to the 43rd floor at precisely 5 p.m. She'd brought a change of clothes, a simple black pantsuit she'd kept from her previous life, carefully maintained despite the years and limited circumstances. Blackwell was alone in his office when she entered, his expression registering subtle approval at her transformed appearance. "Ms. Mendez, or would you prefer Ms. Tanaka in this context?" Sofia froze, ice shooting through her veins. "What did you say?" Sofia Tanaka, previously an associate at Tanaka and Partners in Tokyo and Kyoto. No relation to the founding partner, despite the shared name. Specialized in international corporate law. Disappeared rather suddenly 17 years ago. Blackwell leaned back in his chair, studying her reaction. "Your credentials were impressive, still are." Sofia's hand moved instinctively to her purse, where her phone lay. One call, and Lucia would implement the emergency plan they'd rehearsed. Mudi, grab the pre-packed bags, meet at their designated location, use the alternate identification documents. "How did you find this information?" she asked, her voice steady despite her racing heart. "It wasn't difficult," Blackwell admitted. "Your translation work showed formal training in Japanese legal language. There are only so many non-Japanese attorneys who've practiced in Tokyo at that level. Once I had a time frame and your first name, the rest was simple deduction." "Did you share this information with anyone else?" "No," he replied. "Your conditions included privacy, which I've respected." Sofia studied him, assessing the threat he represented. "Why look into my background at all?" "Professional curiosity," Blackwell said, "and practical considerations. I needed to verify your legal expertise before bringing you into sensitive client matters. And now that you've satisfied your curiosity, now we proceed as agreed." He gestured to the chair. Across from him. "Unless you've changed your mind." Sofia remained standing. "What else do you know?" Blackwell's expression shifted, something like respect flickering in his eyes. "Nothing that would explain why a rising star in international law would abandon her career to become a cleaning lady in another country. That remains your secret, Ms. Mendez, the name you clearly prefer." The tension in Sofia's shoulders eased slightly, but her guard remained up. Blackwell knew enough to be dangerous, but not everything. Not about the Hirokas, not about Lucia. "My past is irrelevant to the work you're hiring me for," she said firmly. "Agreed." Blackwell nodded, pushing a folder across the desk. "Your first project, the Zhang Telecommunications acquisition. We need these documents translated by Friday, with particular attention to the regulatory compliance sections." Sofia took the folder, leafing through the contents. The familiar legal language called to her like an old friend, complex and challenging in a way that scrubbing floors never could be. "I'll need access to legal databases," she said, "and specific reference materials for Chinese telecommunications. Regulations. Already arranged." Blackwell indicated a laptop on the side table. "This is yours to use. Secure access to all firm resources, but no connection to our internal networks. As agreed, your work remains separate from our regular operations." As Sofia familiarized herself with the equipment, Blackwell continued, "You'll be working primarily with me and 2 senior associates who've been told only that you're an external consultant with expertise in Asian markets. Your cleaning supervisor has been informed that you're needed for specialized maintenance tasks in the executive suites during your evening shifts." The thoroughness of his arrangements impressed Sofia. Despite her lingering suspicion, "You've thought of everything." "I didn't build this firm by overlooking details," Blackwell replied. "Now shall we begin?" For the next 3 hours, Sofia immersed herself in the work, her mind stretching in ways it hadn't in years. The intricate dance of legal translation, navigating not just language, but cultural contexts, regulatory frameworks, and unspoken implications, challenged her in ways that felt like coming home. Blackwell worked alongside her, his incisive questions demonstrating why he'd earned his formidable reputation. Whatever else he might be, Dominic Blackwell was a brilliant attorney with an analytical mind that matched Sofia's own. When they finally paused, Sofia was surprised to find it was past 8 p.m. "I should get home to my daughter," she said, gathering her notes. "Of course." Blackwell nodded. "Same time tomorrow?" "Yes." Sofia hesitated at the door. "Mr. Blackwell, I need your word that what you've discovered about my past goes no further." He studied her for a long moment. "You have it. But Sofia, whatever you're running from, or whoever, secrets have a way of surfacing eventually." The warning followed her home, echoing in her mind as she moved through her evening routine. After checking that Lucia was asleep, Sofia retrieved a weathered shoebox from the back of her closet. Inside lay the remnants of her former life, her Japanese law license, a few photographs, newspaper clippings of cases she'd won, and a small velvet box containing the engagement ring Kenji had given her before his family had intervened. At the bottom, beneath everything else, was a sealed envelope she hadn't opened in years. Inside was the last communication she'd received from the Hiroka family, a clinical letter from their legal team offering a substantial settlement in exchange for her agreement to terminate the pregnancy and sign a comprehensive non-disclosure agreement. Sofia had fled Japan the night after receiving it, the threat behind, the coldly professional language all too clear. Takashi Hiroka hadn't built his empire by accepting defeat. A grandchild born to an unacceptable foreign woman was a problem he would solve one way or another. She returned everything to the box, except one photograph, a candid shot of Kenji and herself at a legal conference, both laughing at something now forgotten. Lucia had her father's eyes and his quick mind. Sometimes Sofia wondered if he ever thought about the child he'd never met, the family he'd chosen to sacrifice. The next morning brought unexpected complications. Sofia arrived at her regular cleaning shift to discover the building manager waiting for her. "Change of assignment," he informed her gruffly. "You're being moved to the 32nd floor permanently. Executive request." Sofia tensed. "Whose request?" "Above my pay grade to ask," the manager shrugged. "But the 32nd is easier work, mostly. Empty offices being renovated. Consider it a break. The 32nd floor, 11 floors removed from Blackwell's office and the executive suite where their translation work was to continue." This was no coincidence. Later, when Sofia arrived for her consulting session, Blackwell confirmed her suspicions. "I arranged your reassignment," he admitted without preamble. "Having you clean these offices while also working as a consultant created unnecessary exposure." "You should have consulted me first," Sofia said, anger edging her voice. "Changes to my routine could draw attention." "From whom?" Blackwell asked pointedly. Sofia didn't answer, instead focusing on the work before them. But the incident highlighted the precarious balance she was trying to maintain, and how quickly control could slip from her grasp. The next 2 weeks fell into a new rhythm. By day, Sofia cleaned offices on the 32nd floor, keeping her head down and blending into the background. By evening, she transformed into a legal consultant, her mind engaged in complex work that increasingly expanded beyond mere translation. Blackwell began seeking her input on strategic aspects of the Asian deals, valuing her cultural insights and legal perspective. The 2 senior associates assigned to work with her, Jensen and Miyazaki, clearly wondered about her background but respected the boundaries Blackwell had established. At home, the changes were subtle but significant. Sofia added salmon and fresh vegetables to their grocery list. She replaced Lucia's worn-out laptop with a newer model, small luxuries that her increased income made possible without drawing attention. Lucia flourished under the lessened financial strain, throwing herself into college applications with renewed hope. She didn't ask questions about Sofia's arrangement with Blackwell, seeming to understand instinctively that some things were better left undiscussed. Then came the invitation that shattered their careful equilibrium. "The Zhang team is flying in from Beijing next week," Blackwell informed Sofia one evening as they finalized documents. "They've specifically requested that our cultural consultant attend the dinner meeting." Sofia stiffened. "That wasn't part of our arrangement." "Plans change," Blackwell replied. "This deal is worth $500 million, Sofia. The Zhangs were impressed by your notes on the regulatory framework. They want to meet you." "I don't do public appearances," she insisted. "Find an excuse." Blackwell's expression hardened. "This isn't optional. One dinner, limited attendance at a private dining room in the St. Regis. You'll be introduced only as our consulting expert on Asian markets. No last name, no background details." Sofia stood abruptly. "You don't understand what you're asking? Then explain it to me," Blackwell challenged, his patience visibly thinning. "Because from where I'm sitting, you're jeopardizing a major client relationship over a dinner that poses minimal risk to whatever secret you're protecting." For a moment, Sofia was tempted to tell him everything, about Kenji, about the Hirokas, about the 17 years of looking over her shoulder. But revealing those details would only create another vulnerability. "I can't," she said finally. "And if you insist on this dinner, then our arrangement is terminated." Blackwell studied her, calculation evident in his gaze. "The Zhangs arrive Tuesday. The dinner is at 8 p.m. Let me know your decision by Monday." All weekend, Sofia agonized over the ultimatum. The consulting work had become a lifeline, not just financially, but emotionally and intellectually. Returning to a life of only cleaning, of denying her capabilities and training, felt like a regression she couldn't bear. But the dinner represented exposure she'd carefully avoided for 17 years. The international business community was small at its highest levels. What if someone recognized her? What if word somehow reached the Hirokas? "You're distracted," Lucia observed Sunday evening as they prepared dinner together. "Is it work?" Sofia hesitated, then decided on a partial truth. "Mr. Blackwell wants me to attend a business dinner with clients. It would be my first public appearance as a consultant." Lucia's eyes widened. "That's a big step." "Too big," Sofia replied. "I've told him I won't do it." "Because of my grandfather?" Lucia asked directly. "Because you're afraid he might somehow find out?" The question hung between them, more pointed than any Lucia had asked before. At 17, she was no longer a child to be protected with simplified explanations and half-truths. "Yes," Sofia admitted. "Your grandfather has connections throughout Asia. These clients are Chinese executives with global business interests. The risk is small but real." Lucia was quiet for a moment, chopping vegetables with methodical precision. "Mum, how long do we keep hiding? Another 17 years? Forever?" The question struck Sofia like a physical blow. "I'm trying to keep you safe." "I know," Lucia said gently. "But I'm almost an adult now. Don't I get some say in how much fear controls our lives?" Sofia looked at her daughter, so poised, so thoughtful, so much stronger than Sofia had been at her age. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying maybe it's time to stop letting him win," Lucia replied. "Every time we make a decision based on fear of him, he still controls us. Even from across the ocean, even after all these years." That night, after Lucia had gone to bed, Sofia sat alone at the kitchen table, her daughter's words echoing in her mind. Perhaps Lucia was right. Perhaps there was a difference between caution and capitulation. She pulled out her phone and composed. A text to Blackwell. I'll attend the dinner under the following conditions. No photographs, no business cards, introduction by first name only, and I leave immediately after the meal portion. Confirm these terms are acceptable. His reply came. Moments later, agreed. Car will pick you up at 7:30 Tuesday, formal attire. Monday passed in a haze of anxiety as Sofia prepared for the dinner. She visited a consignment shop in another neighborhood, purchasing a simple black evening dress that would allow her to blend in without standing out. She practiced introducing herself simply as Sofia, our Asian market specialist, in the mirror, keeping her slight accent consistent with her Sofia Mendez identity rather than the more polished English she'd spoken as Sofia Tanaka. Tuesday evening arrived too quickly. Sofia hugged Lucia goodbye, trying to mask her nervousness. I won't be late. There's leftover pasta in the fridge. You look beautiful, Mama, Lucia said, adjusting Sofia's simple silver necklace. Like the lawyer you used to be. I'm still just a cleaning lady playing dress-up, Sofia smiled wryly. Lucia shook her head. No, you're finally remembering who you really are. The car Blackwell sent was discreetly luxurious, expensive but not flashy. Sofia spent the ride mentally reviewing everything she knew about the Jiang telecommunications deal, focusing on the work to calm her nerves. The St. Regis's private dining room was elegant without being ostentatious, the kind of setting where global business was conducted away from public eyes. Blackwell was waiting in the lobby, his appraising glance taking in her appearance with approval. You clean up well, Miss Mendez, he commented as they walked toward the elevator. As do you, Mr. Blackwell, she returned, noting his impeccable tuxedo. The Jiangs have brought their legal team and 2 board members, he briefed her. Remember, you're here as our cultural consultant. Follow my lead on what information we share. Sofia nodded, squaring her shoulders as the elevator ascended. She could do this. One dinner, carefully managed, then back to the shadows. The doors opened onto the private dining floor, and Blackwell guided her with a light touch at her elbow. Deep breath, he murmured. You've faced tougher rooms than this before, I suspect. Something in his tone, not quite sympathy, but a kind of professional solidarity, steadied her. Blackwell might have uncovered parts of her past, but he still didn't know the whole truth. And for tonight at least, their interests were aligned. The dining room doors opened, revealing a group of about 15 people engaged in pre-dinner conversation. Sofia scanned the faces automatically, an old habit from her previous life, assessing clients, competitors, potential allies. And then her heart stopped. In the corner, speaking with one of the Jiang executives, stood a face she recognized instantly despite the passing years. Not Takashi Hiroka himself, but almost as dangerous, Masaru Ito, the Hiroka's longtime legal counsel and Takashi's most trusted advisor. Ito hadn't seen her yet. There was still time to retreat, to make an excuse, to preserve the life she'd built. Beside her, Blackwell sensed her sudden tension. Problem? He asked quietly. Sofia forced herself to breathe. The older Japanese man in the corner. Do you know him? Masaru Ito, Blackwell confirmed, represents several Japanese investment groups interested in the Jiang technologies. Brilliant attorney, ruthless negotiator. He studied her face. You know him. It wasn't a question. I need to leave, Sofia whispered. Now, before he sees me. Blackwell's expression sharpened. Is he why you've been hiding all these years? Not him specifically, Sofia managed, but he knows he would recognize. Before she could finish, disaster struck. Ito looked up, his gaze sweeping the room and landing directly on Sofia. For a moment, his expression remained neutral. Then recognition dawned, his eyes widening in shock. Sofia Tanaka, he said, loud enough to carry across the suddenly quiet room. After all this time. Time seemed to freeze as every head in the room turned toward Sofia. The careful facade she'd maintained for 17 years crumbled in an instant, exposed by 2 words from Masaru Ito, Sofia Tanaka. Beside her, Blackwell's posture shifted subtly, his body angling to shield her slightly from the room, a gesture of protection that surprised her. "Mr. Ito," Sofia managed, her voice steadier than she felt. "What an unexpected surprise." Ito excused himself from his conversation partner and approached, his expression a mask of professional courtesy that did nothing to disguise the calculation in his eyes. At 70, he remained formidable, a legal shark who had helped the Hiroka family navigate countless delicate situations, including her own. "When you disappeared from Kyoto," he said in Japanese, "Takashi-san was most displeased. So many resources spent searching for you." Sofia responded in the same language, her formal Japanese returning effortlessly despite the years. "I'm sure his concern was touching." Ito's thin lips curved in what passed for a smile. "He will be interested to learn where you've been hiding and what became of the situation." The implied threat hung in the air between them. Sofia felt rather than saw Blackwell tense beside her, though he couldn't understand the Japanese exchange. "Is there a problem?" Blackwell interjected smoothly in English. Ito switched languages with practiced ease. "No problem. Simply reconnecting with a former colleague. Sofia was quite promising before she left Japan, so abruptly." "Indeed," Blackwell replied. "And now she's a valued consultant with our firm. Mr. Zhang is eager to begin dinner, shall we?" The strategic redirection worked temporarily, as protocol demanded they move toward the dining table. Sofia found herself seated between Blackwell and a Zhang executive, with Ito positioned directly across from her, so accident in the carefully orchestrated seating arrangement. As the first course was served, Sofia forced herself to focus, to breathe, to think. Ito wouldn't make a scene in this setting. He was too skilled a negotiator for such clumsiness. But his presence meant the clock was ticking. Once he reported, back to Takashi Hiroka, her carefully constructed life would unravel. Beside her, Blackwell maintained a stream of business conversation while occasionally squeezing her knee under the table when her responses faltered. A surprisingly human gesture from the typically ruthless attorney. Somehow, she made it through. The appetizer and main course, offering insights on Chinese regulatory frameworks when directly addressed. During a brief lull while dessert was being served, Ito leaned forward. "Tell me, Sofia-san, do you have family here in America?" The seemingly innocent question carried lethal intent. Sofia met his gaze without flinching. "My personal life is not relevant to tonight's discussions, Ito-san." "On the contrary," he smiled thinly, "connections often inform business relationships. For instance, your connection to the Hiroka family would be of great interest to many here." Several heads turned at the mention of the powerful Japanese conglomerate. Blackwell, observing the exchange, smoothly intervened. "Speaking of connections," he redirected, "Mr. Zhang, your expansion into Southeast Asian markets shows remarkable foresight." The conversation shifted, but the damage was done. The name Hiroka had been introduced into the room, and Sofia could see questions forming in the eyes of those around her. When coffee was served, Sofia excused herself to the restroom, needing a moment to regroup. In the elegant marble sanctuary, she gripped the edge of the sink, staring at her reflection. The woman who gazed back was neither Sofia Mendez, the invisible cleaning lady, nor Sofia Tanaka, the rising legal star. She was someone caught between worlds, identities fracturing under pressure. The bathroom door opened, and Sofia straightened, expecting another dinner guest. Instead, Dominic Blackwell stepped in, checking that they were alone before locking the door behind him. "We have about 3 minutes before someone notices," he said without preamble. "What's going on, Sofia? And don't tell me it's nothing. I recognize an extraction scenario when I see one." Sofia hesitated, weighing her limited options. Masaru Ito works for a man named Takashi Hiroka, one of the most powerful businessmen in Japan. "I know who Hiroka is," Blackwell nodded. "Technology, shipping, real estate, political connections throughout Asia. But what does he have to do with you?" "I was engaged to his son," Sofia admitted, the words feeling strange after so many years of silence. "When I became pregnant, Takashi decided I was unsuitable, unacceptable for the Hiroka bloodline." Understanding dawned in Blackwell's eyes. "Your daughter. Lucia is Hiroka by blood, though she doesn't carry the name. When Takashi learned of the pregnancy, he made it clear that the situation would be resolved, one way or another." Sofia's voice hardened at the memory. "I left Japan that night. I've been hiding ever since. For 17 years. Blackwell looked incredulous. "Surely after all this time—" "You don't understand men like Takashi Hiroka," Sofia cut him off. "His pride, his family's so-called purity, these matter more than anything. A half-American granddaughter raised by a single mother is an unacceptable stain on the Hiroka legacy." Blackwell absorbed this, his analytical mind visibly processing implications. "What will Ito do now that he's found you?" "Report back to Takashi immediately. Within days, Hiroka representatives will be watching my apartment, tracking Lucia's movements." Fear gripped Sofia's heart. "I need to get home. We need to leave tonight." "Running again isn't the answer," Blackwell said, surprising her. "You've built a life here. Your daughter is applying to colleges. There must be another solution." "What would you suggest?" Sofia asked bitterly. "Take on one of the wealthiest families in Asia." "I'm a cleaning lady, Blackwell." "No," he replied, his gaze intense. "You're Sofia Tanaka, a brilliant attorney who's been hiding in plain sight, and you have more resources than you realize." He checked his watch. "We need to return. Follow my lead, and whatever happens, don't leave the dinner until I do." Before she could protest, he unlocked the door and ushered her back toward the dining room. As they approached, Sofia saw Ito speaking quietly into his phone, his back turned to the room. Her stomach tightened. The countdown had begun. The Dijon remainder of the dinner passed in a blur of business discussion and forced pleasantries. When Mr. Zhang finally signaled the evening's conclusion, Ito approached Sofia directly. "I look forward to continuing our reunion, Sofia-san," he said, handing her a business card. "Perhaps with Takashi-san present. He maintains a residence here in the city, as it happens." Before Sofia could respond, Blackwell materialized at her side. "Ms. Tanaka's schedule is quite full these days," he said smoothly, using her real surname for the first time. "Any meetings would need to be arranged through my office." Ito's eyebrows rose fractionally. "I wasn't aware Sofia was formally affiliated with your firm, Mr. Blackwell." "There's much you're not aware of," Blackwell replied with a shark-like smile. "My car is waiting, Sofia. Shall we?" In the elevator descending to the lobby, Sofia rounded on him. "What are you doing? Using my real name, implying I work for your firm officially, establishing protection," Blackwell cut in. "Ito needs to understand you're not isolated and vulnerable anymore. You have connections of your own now." "Blackwell, Richmond Associates against the Hiroka Empire?" Sofia gave a hollow laugh. "That's hardly an even match." "Perhaps not," he conceded as they exited the hotel. "But it changes the calculation. Makes this more complicated than simply tracking down a lone woman and her daughter." He guided her toward a waiting black SUV. "Now let's get you home. We need to talk to Lucia." "Absolutely not," Sofia halted. "I need to get her somewhere safe immediately, tonight." "Running." is what they'll expect, Blackwell argued. It's the scenario they're prepared for. We need to change the game. This isn't a legal strategy, Dominic, Sofia hissed, using his first name in her agitation. This is my daughter's life. I understand that, he replied, his voice softening. Unexpectedly. Trust me, Sofia, please. Something in his tone, a sincerity she hadn't heard from him before, made her hesitate. Why are you helping me? This isn't your fight. Blackwell's expression grew distant. Let's just say I recognize the tactics of powerful men who believe their wealth puts them above basic humanity. He opened the car door. Now, please get in. We don't have much time. The drive to Sofia's apartment was tense, neither speaking until they pulled up outside her modest building. Wait here, she instructed Blackwell before hurrying inside. She found Lucia at the kitchen table, surrounded by college application essays. Her daughter looked up with a smile that quickly faded as she registered Sofia's expression. What's wrong? Lucia asked, immediately alert. Pack a bag, Sofia instructed. Essentials only. We need to leave. Lucia stood, fear and resignation, battling in her expression. They found us, didn't they? My father's family. Not your father, Sofia corrected gently. Your grandfather's attorney, at the dinner. Instead of the panic Sofia expected, Lucia's face set in a determined line. I'm tired of running, Mama. I'm tired of being afraid of people I've never even met. Lucia, please. No, her daughter interrupted firmly. I've spent my entire life hiding because of them. I won't let them chase us away again. This is our home. My school is here. My future is here. Sofia recognized the stubborn set of Lucia's jaw, the same expression Kenji had worn when arguing a point of law he felt passionate about. Before she could respond, a knock sounded at the door. Lucia tensed. Is that them already? No, Sofia sighed. It's my boss, Mr. Blackwell. The lawyer is here? Lucia's eyebrows shot up. Why? He thinks he can help, Sofia replied, moving to open the door, though I'm not convinced. Dominic Blackwell looked oddly out of place in their small apartment, his tailored tuxedo a stark contrast to the modest surroundings. He nodded respectfully to Lucia. You must be Lucia. Your mother has told me about you. Hardly anything, I suspect, Lucia replied with surprising poise. She's very careful about what she reveals. A smile touched Blackwell's lips. A wise approach, generally speaking, though perhaps not in the current circumstances. He turned to Sofia. We need to talk strategy, all three of us. I already told her we need to leave, Sofia said, frustration edging her voice. And I already told her I refuse to run again, Lucia countered. Blackwell studied them both, then gestured to the kitchen table. May I? Reluctantly, Sofia nodded, and they all sat. Blackwell loosened his bow tie, suddenly looking more human than Sofia had ever seen him. Lucia, he began directly, your mother is right to be concerned. Takashi Hiroka is not someone to underestimate. His resources are vast, his influence reaches far, and he's demonstrated a willingness to disrupt your lives. Lucia's shoulders slumped slightly. So we have to run. I didn't say that, Blackwell corrected. Running is one option, but there are others. Sofia narrowed her eyes. What exactly are you suggesting? A legal counteroffensive, Blackwell replied. Establish formal protection through the courts. Document the past threats. Create a public position that would make any action against you costly for the Hirokas. You're talking about exposing everything, Sofia said incredulously. The very thing I've been preventing for 17 years. I'm talking about controlling the narrative, rather than being controlled by it, Blackwell countered. The Hirokas have maintained power, partly because they operate in shadows, applying pressure privately. What happens if their actions face public scrutiny? They're practically royalty in Japan, Sofia argued. The public scrutiny would fall on us, not them. Perhaps in Japan, Blackwell acknowledged. But here, a powerful foreign businessman threatening an American citizen and her daughter who was born on US soil, that's a different story entirely. Lucia leaned forward, engaged. What exactly would this involve? First, documentation, Blackwell outlined. Everything your mother has saved from that time. Threats, communications, evidence of the pressure applied. Second, preparation of legal filings that could be submitted if necessary. Restraining orders, harassment complaints, potentially even civil suits for emotional distress. And third, he continued, strategic disclosure to create deterrence. Not media, not yet, but targeted information shared with specific individuals who would make any move against you problematic for the Hirokas. Sofia shook her head. You're assuming they care about American legal constraints. Takashi operates above such considerations. Not entirely, Blackwell countered. Hiroka Industries has substantial American investments and government contracts. They maintain carefully cultivated relationships with regulatory bodies here. Creating a legal liability would complicate those relationships. This could work, Mama, Lucia said, hope animating her features. We could stop running. Sofia studied her daughter's face, seeing the weight of a lifetime of fear and secrecy. Then she looked at Blackwell, trying to understand his motivations. Why would you risk involving your firm in this? What do you gain? Something flickered in Blackwell's expression, a brief glimpse of something personal beneath his professional exterior. Let's just say I have experience with men who use power to control others. This time, I'm choosing the other side. Before, Sofia could press further. Her phone rang. An unknown number with a Japanese country code. Her blood ran cold. It's starting already, she whispered, showing them the screen. Don't answer, Blackwell advised, but we need to move quickly. Do you have somewhere you can stay tonight? Not a hotel. They'd check those first. Sofia thought for a moment. My friend Elena. She's out of town but gave me her spare key to water her plants. Perfect. Blackwell nodded. Pack essentials for a few days. I'll make some calls. As Sofia and Lucia gathered their things, she observed Blackwell pacing in their small living room, speaking intently into his phone. Despite her lingering suspicion, something about his commanding presence provided a strange comfort. For the first time in 17 years, she wasn't facing this threat alone. Within 30 minutes, they were in Blackwell's SUV heading toward Elena's apartment in a different neighborhood. Sofia's phone had rung twice more from different Japanese numbers, each call igniting fresh anxiety. They're establishing your location, Blackwell explained. Standard procedure, triangulating. The signal. We're moving before they can deploy people on the ground. How do you know so much about these tactics? Sofia asked. Blackwell's expression remained neutral. Let's just say high-stakes corporate law sometimes ventures into gray areas of information gathering. I've been on both sides of it. At Elena's apartment, a modest but comfortable space in a secure building, Blackwell helped them bring in their bags, then conducted a surprisingly thorough security check of the doors and windows. I have to go, but I'll be back in the morning, he told them. Don't use your regular phones. These are burners. He handed them each a basic flip phone. My number is programmed in. Call if anything concerns you, no matter how small. Sofia walked him to the door. I still don't understand why you're doing this, she said quietly, ensuring Lucia couldn't overhear. Blackwell was silent for a moment. 17 years ago, my sister was in a situation not entirely unlike yours, involved with a powerful man whose family considered her unsuitable. When she became pregnant, they applied pressure. Unlike you, she didn't run. His jaw tightened. She lost the baby under suspicious circumstances. Officially an accident. By the time I put the pieces together, there was nothing I could do except watch her spiral into depression. Sofia's breath caught. "I'm sorry." "Charlotte never recovered," he continued, his voice controlled but with an undercurrent of old pain. "She took her own life 2 years later. The man she loved married someone appropriate 6 months after that. His family's company continues to thrive." Understanding dawned. "That's why you became the kind of lawyer you are, fighting fire with fire." "I learned that playing by the rules doesn't work against people who believe themselves above those rules," Blackwell confirmed. "I built my career taking on opponents like that, and winning." "Until now, always for a fee," Sofia observed. A ghost of a smile touched his lips. "Consider this pro bono work. Get some rest, Sofia. Tomorrow, we start building your defense." After Blackwell left, Sofia found Lucia organizing their few belongings in the guest room, her movements efficient, despite the chaos of their situation. "Are we really doing this?" Lucia asked, pausing to meet her mother's gaze. "Fighting back instead of running?" Sofia sat on the edge of the bed, suddenly exhausted. "I don't know if it's the right choice. Blackwell makes it sound possible, but the Hirokas have controlled our lives long enough," Lucia finished. Firmly, "I'm 17, Mama. Next year I'll be in college. I want to live without looking over my shoulder, without using only half my name, without being afraid of my own heritage." Looking at her daughter, so strong, so determined, Sofia felt a shift inside herself. Perhaps it was time to reclaim not just her professional identity, but her courage as well. "When did you become so wise?" she asked softly. "I learned." "From you," Lucia replied, sitting beside her. "You've always taught me to stand up for what's right. Maybe now it's time we stand up for ourselves." They spent the night in Elena's apartment, jumping at every sound in the unfamiliar space. Sofia barely slept, her mind cycling through worst-case scenarios and contingency plans. By dawn, she'd made a decision. They would try Blackwell's approach, but with safeguards of her own. At precisely 7 a.m., a knock sounded at the door. Sofia approached cautiously, checking the peephole to confirm it was Blackwell before opening. He looked different in daylight, still imposing in his tailored suit, but with subtle signs of humanity. The shadow of stubble on his jaw suggested he'd slept as little as she had. "We have work to do," he said without preamble, carrying in a leather briefcase and what appeared to be breakfast from a nearby cafe. "But first, coffee." As they ate, Blackwell outlined his plan in greater detail. "I've assigned a team at the firm to prepare the legal groundwork. Confidentially, of course. They believe it's for a high-profile client facing international harassment." "Technically true," Sofia acknowledged. "Meanwhile," he continued, "I've made some discreet inquiries about Hiroka's current activities. He's in Tokyo, but his private jet filed a flight plan for New York departing tomorrow." Sofia's hand tightened around her coffee cup. "He's coming himself." "Which tells us something important," Blackwell noted. "This matters to him personally. It's not just business." "It never was," Sofia replied. "The Hiroka bloodline is sacred to him. An unacknowledged granddaughter is an affront to everything he values." "What about my father?" Lucia asked suddenly. "Where is he in all this?" Sofia hesitated, the question piercing a place she rarely allowed herself to examine. "Kenji was complicated. He loved me, I believe, but his loyalty to his father was absolute. When Takashi opposed our relationship, Kenji withdrew. By the time I told him about the pregnancy, he'd already agreed to an arranged marriage his father approved of." "So he chose his father over us," Lucia concluded, her expression carefully neutral. "He chose his inheritance, his position, the path that had been laid out for him since birth," Sofia corrected gently. "I'm not excusing him, but the pressure on him was enormous." "And now his father is coming here," Lucia said thoughtfully. "My grandfather, the man who's been the bogeyman of my entire life." Blackwell set down his coffee, which brings us to the next phase of our strategy. We need to decide, do we avoid Takashi entirely, or do we confront him on our terms? Confront him? Sofia looked alarmed. That's not an option. Actually, Blackwell countered, it might be our strongest position. Takashi Hiroka is used to operating from a position of power, summoning others, making them react to him. What if, instead, we requested the meeting, set the location, the terms, the framework? That's insane, Sofia objected. You don't invite a predator into your space. Unless you've prepared the battlefield to your advantage, Blackwell argued. Think strategically, Sofia. What does Takashi want? Sofia considered the question. Control, information about Lucia, assurance that his family name won't be tarnished. Exactly, Blackwell nodded. And what do we want? To be left alone, Sofia said immediately. To live without fear of his interference. So we offer a negotiation, Blackwell concluded. A formal agreement that addresses his concerns while protecting your freedom. Lucia, who had been listening intently, spoke up. Shouldn't I have a say in this? He's my grandfather, after all. Both adults turned to her, Sofia with concern. Blackwell with something like respect. What would you want to say to him? Blackwell asked. Lucia squared her shoulders, looking suddenly older than her 17 years. I'd want him to know that I exist, that I'm real, not just some abstract problem to be solved, that I have a name and a life and dreams, that he's been threatening all these years without ever even meeting me. Sofia felt her heart constrict with a mixture of pride and fear. Lucia, facing Takashi Hiroka is not like facing a school principal or debate opponent. He's dangerous. So am I, Lucia replied with quiet determination. I'm smart, I'm prepared, and I have something he doesn't. What's that? Blackwell asked, genuine curiosity in his tone. Lucia's expression was resolute. The truth, and a mother who would do anything to protect me. The next 48 hours unfolded with the precision of a legal brief. Blackwell marshaled resources Sofia hadn't known existed. Security specialists who swept Elena's apartment for surveillance devices, researchers who compiled dossiers on Takashi Hiroka's current business interests in America, and a team of attorneys who prepared documents without knowing the full context of their work. Sofia contributed her own expertise, translating her old legal training into a strategy for confronting the man who had cast such a long shadow over her life. The weathered shoebox containing remnants of her past yielded unexpected power. The original threatening letters from Hiroka's legal team dated bank records showing the attempted payoff, even photographs documenting her hasty departure from Japan. This is excellent, Blackwell said, reviewing the evidence. Establishes a clear pattern of coercion. In American courts, this would be compelling. We're not going to court, Sofia reminded him. This is leverage, nothing more. Everything is court, Blackwell replied, just with different judges. In this case, the court of Takashi's business interests and reputation. Throughout these preparations, Lucia remained steadfast in her desire to participate. Her insights often surprised both adults, perspectives neither the traumatized mother nor the strategic attorney had considered. He believes he's protecting his family legacy, Lucia observed, studying a photograph of the stern-faced Takashi at a corporate event. But what kind of legacy is built on threats and fear? That's not protection, it's control. Sofia marveled at her daughter's wisdom. Somehow, despite the chaos of their life, Lucia had developed a moral clarity that transcended her years. On the morning Takashi's plane was scheduled to land, Sofia stood at Elena's window watching dawn break over the city. Sleep had been elusive, her mind churning with alternate scenarios and contingency plans. The weight of 17 years of vigilance pressed upon her. But alongside it, something new was growing. A determination that went beyond mere survival. "You should rest," Blackwell said, approaching with coffee. He'd arrived at 5 a.m. already impeccably dressed despite the hour. "Today will require all your strength." Sofia accepted the cup gratefully. "I keep thinking about what happens after. If this works, if he agrees to leave us alone, what then?" "You live," Blackwell said simply. "You practice law again, if that's what you want. Lucia goes to college without looking over her shoulder. You build the life you deserve instead of the one fear has confined you to." The possibility seemed almost too precious to contemplate. "And if it doesn't work?" Blackwell's expression hardened. "Then we move to Plan B. Legal action, media exposure, every weapon at our disposal. Takashi Hiroka isn't the only one with resources, Sofia." At noon, their phones simultaneously lit up with a message from Blackwell's security team. Takashi. Hiroka's private jet had landed. By their estimation, he would reach the city within the hour. "It's time," Blackwell announced, gathering the carefully prepared documents. "Are you both ready?" Sofia looked at Lucia, finding her daughter already, watching her with steady resolve. "We're ready," she answered for them both. The location Blackwell had chosen for the confrontation was calculated for both neutrality and advantage. A private conference room at his firm's satellite office across town from their main headquarters. The space projected authority without, revealing their primary operations and security measures could be controlled completely. "Remember," Blackwell coached as they drove, "Takashi will try to establish dominance immediately. Don't allow it. We requested this meeting. We set the terms. We maintain control of the narrative." Sofia nodded, her lawyer's mind engaging despite her anxiety. "He'll bring Ito and probably at least one other advisor. They'll try to separate us, to isolate me for maximum pressure." "Which is why we stay together," Lucia asserted from the back seat. "United front." They arrived 30 minutes early, allowing time to settle into the space and review their strategy one final time. The conference room Blackwell had selected featured a long mahogany table with the visitor chairs positioned so that afternoon sun would shine directly in the eyes of anyone sitting there, a subtle psychological advantage. At precisely 2 p.m., Blackwell's phone buzzed. "They're here," he announced. 3 individuals, Takashi, Ito, and an unidentified younger man. Sofia's breath caught. "Describe the younger man." The security feed showed a tall, impeccably dressed Japanese man in his 40s, with a bearing that radiated contained authority. "Kenji," Sofia whispered. "He brought Kenji." Lucia stiffened. "My father is here?" Before Sofia could respond, a knock sounded at the conference room door. The moment of confrontation had arrived. Blackwell opened the door with practiced authority, greeting the visitors with professional courtesy rather than deference. "Mr. Hiroka, thank you for accepting our invitation. Please come in." The man who entered first carried his 75 years with imperial dignity. Takashi Hiroka stood straight-backed in a hand-tailored suit, his silver hair immaculately groomed, his piercing eyes taking in the room with a predator's assessment. Those eyes found Sofia immediately, narrowing with recognition and something harder to define. Behind him came Masaru Ito, unchanged from the dinner except for his expression, no longer surprised but grimly determined. And then the third figure entered. Kenji Hiroka had aged in the 17 years since Sofia had last seen him. Lines had formed at the corners of his eyes and strands of grey threaded through his dark hair. But his posture, his movements, remained, familiar enough to make her heart constrict painfully. When Kenji's gaze fell on Sofia, a complex array of emotions crossed his face too quickly to interpret. Then his eyes shifted to Lucia, and he froze completely, recognition hitting him like a physical blow. "Shall we sit?" Blackwell suggested, gesturing to the prepared chairs. Takashi did not move, his attention fixed on Sofia. "So," he said in English, his accent crisp and precise, "the runaway returns, though not, I see, repentant." "I have nothing to repent," Sofia replied evenly. "I protected my child from threats made against her before she was even born." Takashi's expression hardened. "You stole from the Hiroka family." "A child is not property to be stolen," Sofia countered. "She is a person with rights of her own." Kenji remained silent, his gaze still fixed on Lucia with undisguised wonder. Lucia met his scrutiny with remarkable poise, her chin lifted in a gesture unconsciously mirroring his own. "Perhaps we should all sit," Blackwell intervened again, his tone making it clear this was not merely a suggestion. "We have matters to discuss that will benefit from civility." Something in his authoritative manner seemed to register with Takashi, who assessed Blackwell with new interest. "You are not merely legal counsel," he observed. "Your involvement is personal." "My involvement is professional," Blackwell corrected smoothly. "But my commitment to protecting Ms. Tanaka and her daughter is absolute." This time, Takashi did sit, a subtle signal that elevated the encounter from confrontation to negotiation. Ito took the chair to his right, while Kenji hesitated before finally sitting directly across from Lucia. Sofia and Blackwell exchanged a glance before taking their own seats, flanking Lucia protectively. The tableau was set, 3 against 3, across the polished expanse of mahogany. "Let us dispense with pretense," Takashi began. "You have hidden my granddaughter from her family for 17 years. This is unacceptable. The Hiroka bloodline is not to be treated with such disrespect." "Respect is earned, not demanded," Sofia replied. "Your actions forfeited any claim to respect when you threatened a pregnant woman and her unborn child." Takashi's eyes flashed. "I offered you compensation, generous compensation." "You offered me money to terminate my pregnancy," Sofia corrected, her voice steady despite the surge of old anger. "When I refused, your representatives made it clear that more forceful measures would be considered." "That is an exaggeration," Ito interjected smoothly. "Our communications were entirely professional." Sofia removed a document from her folder and slid it across the table. "Perhaps you'd care to refresh your memory, Ito-san. Your exact words, translated from the Japanese. Takashi-sama cannot allow this situation to continue. If you insist on being unreasonable, we will be forced to ensure the Hiroka family interests are protected by any means necessary." Ito's expression remained impassive, but a muscle twitched in his jaw. "I was never informed of such language," Kenji spoke for the first time, his voice eerily familiar despite the years. He looked at his father. "You told me Sofia had accepted the settlement and terminated the pregnancy. You said she was returning to America with the funds." A heavy silence fell over the room. Sofia stared at Kenji, processing this revelation. "You didn't know I kept the baby." "I was told you had made the practical decision," Kenji replied, his eyes moving again to Lucia. "I discovered that was a lie only yesterday when my father received Ito's call from New York." Takashi showed no reaction to this exposure, his focus unwavering. "The past is irrelevant. We are here to resolve the current situation." "The current situation," Blackwell interjected, "is that Ms. Tanaka and her daughter have built lives here in America. Lives you have no legal or moral right to disrupt." "The girl is a Hiroka," Takashi stated flatly. "She belongs with her family." "My name," Lucia spoke for the first time, her voice clear and steady, "is Lucia Tanaka. I have never been a Hiroka in name, though I carry that blood, and I belong exactly where I choose to be." All eyes turned to her, surprise registering, even on Takashi's controlled features. Lucia continued, her composure remarkable for her 17 years. You don't know me, Mr. Hiroka. You've never tried to know me. For my entire life you've been a threat, not a grandfather. So please don't pretend this is about family loyalty or bloodlines. This is about control, your need for it, and my right to refuse it. Kenji was staring at his daughter with undisguised admiration. She has your courage, Sofia, he said softly, and your clarity. She has her own courage, Sofia corrected. Forged through circumstances no child should have to face. Takashi's expression remained stern, but something had shifted in his assessment of the situation. He studied Lucia with new intensity. You speak well, he acknowledged. Education has not been neglected, at least. My mother has sacrificed everything to ensure I had opportunities, Lucia replied, despite having to work as a cleaning lady in a foreign country because of your threats. This direct challenge seemed to catch Takashi off guard. A cleaning lady? His gaze snapped to Sofia. You, with your legal training and potential. When you're running for your life, you take the work you can get without credentials or questions, Sofia replied evenly. I did what was necessary to protect my daughter. A complicated emotion flickered across Takashi's face, perhaps the first genuine reaction he had shown. Before he could respond, Blackwell redirected the conversation to practical matters. We've prepared documents outlining our proposed resolution, he said, distributing folders to each of the visitors. The terms are straightforward. The Hiroka family will cease all attempts to interfere with Sofia and Lucia Tanaka's lives. In exchange, they will sign legally binding confidentiality agreements regarding the Hiroka family. Ito opened his folder first, scanning the contents with professional detachment. These terms are one-sided. There is nothing here acknowledging the Hiroka family's legitimate interest in the girl's welfare. My welfare has never been your concern, Lucia pointed out. If it had been, you wouldn't have threatened my existence before I was even born. Kenji winced visibly at this, while Takashi's expression remained impassive. What would you consider a reasonable compromise? Blackwell asked, directing the question to Takashi rather than Ito, acknowledging where the true authority lay. Takashi considered this, his calculating mind visibly shifting strategies. The girl should know her heritage. The Hiroka name carries responsibilities as well as privileges. I'm willing to learn about my Japanese heritage, Lucia offered, carefully, but on my terms, not as an obligation or debt. And what of your future? Takashi pressed. Your education, your career path. Those are my decisions to make, Lucia replied firmly. Though I won't pretend financial support for college wouldn't be welcome, but it would be a gift, not a purchase of control. Sofia marveled at her daughter's instinctive negotiating skill, acknowledging the one area where Takashi could legitimately provide value while establishing clear boundaries. Takashi turned to Kenji, speaking in rapid Japanese. She has the Hiroka business sense, at least. Perhaps this situation can be salvaged. Kenji replied in the same language, his tone more forceful than Sofia had ever heard him use with his father. This is not a business transaction to be salvaged. This is my daughter, a daughter I didn't know existed because of your manipulation. There will be no more handling of this situation your way. The exchange continued in Japanese, growing more heated. Sofia translated key phrases for Blackwell and Lucia in whispers, while Ito watched the family drama unfold with practiced neutrality. Finally, Takashi turned back to them, switching to English. I propose an alternative arrangement. The girl, Lucia, will be acknowledged privately as a Hiroka descendant. Her education will be funded through a trust controlled jointly by her mother and Kenji. In exchange, she will spend 2 weeks each summer in Japan learning her heritage under appropriate supervision. Supervised by whom? Sofia asked immediately. By me, Kenji answered before his father could speak. If Lucia is willing, and with you present, Sofia, if you wish. The offer hung in the air, unexpected and complex. Sofia studied Kenji's face, searching for the manipulation she had learned to expect from the Hiroka family. Instead, she found something that looked remarkably like regret and hope intermingled. I would need assurances, Sofia said carefully. Legal assurances that these visits wouldn't become opportunities for coercion or attempts to keep Lucia in Japan. Of course, Kenji nodded. Whatever documents would provide that security. And what of Sofia's career? Blackwell asked, surprising her. 17 years of professional development were stolen from her. That deserves compensation as well. Takashi's eyebrows rose fractionally. She chose to run. She chose to protect her child from threats you authorized, Blackwell countered. That's not choice, it's coercion. An uncomfortable silence fell. Then, unexpectedly, Kenji spoke. He's right, father. His voice was quiet but firm. We owe Sofia more than just acknowledgement of Lucia. We owe her restoration. Takashi's expression hardened, unused to being challenged by his son. For a tense moment it seemed the negotiation might collapse. Then his gaze fell on Lucia again, studying her features. The unmistakable Hiroka determination in her jawline, the intelligence in her eyes. What would you consider appropriate restoration, Miss Tanaka? He asked finally. Sofia hadn't expected the question. She looked at Blackwell, who gave a slight nod of encouragement. Recognition of my legal credentials, she said slowly. Assistance in having my Japanese law license acknowledged for international practice, and a position that allows me to use my training and experience. You want to work for Hiroka Industries? Takashi asked, skepticism evident. No, Sofia replied firmly. I want the freedom to work where my abilities are valued without your interference, whether that's returning to law practice or continuing the consulting work I've recently begun. Takashi considered this, then nodded once. Acceptable. Ito will arrange the necessary documentation and introductions. The negotiation continued for another hour, addressing specifics of the educational trust for Lucia, the parameters of the summer visits to Japan, and the professional support Sofia would receive. Throughout, Kenji remained actively engaged, often advocating positions that aligned more with Sofia and Lucia's interests than his father's wishes, a dynamic Sofia had never witnessed during their relationship. Finally, Blackwell summarized the agreed terms. We'll have formal documents drawn up by tomorrow. Once signed, this matter will be considered resolved. No surveillance, no interference, no threats, direct or implied. Agreed, Takashi said, rising to indicate the meeting was concluded. He paused, looking at Lucia. You would have made a formidable Hiroka. I'm making a formidable Tanaka, Lucia replied evenly, but I'm willing to learn about both sides of my heritage. Something almost like approval flickered in Takashi's eyes before he turned to leave, Ito following close behind. Kenji, however, lingered. May I speak with you? He asked Sofia quietly, and with Lucia if she's willing. Sofia glanced at her daughter, who nodded. Blackwell excused himself tactfully, leaving the three of them alone in the conference room, a family constellation that had never before existed. I want you both to know, Kenji began, his voice unsteady, that I was told Sofia had terminated the pregnancy and returned to America. My father presented documents, a signed settlement agreement. I believed. You believed what was convenient to believe, Sofia finished for him. What allowed you to follow the path your father had planned for you? Kenji did not deny this. Yes, I failed you, Sofia, and I failed you, Lucia, before I even knew you existed. There is no adequate apology for that. No, Sofia agreed. There isn't. But there is tomorrow, Lucia said unexpectedly, and the day after that. What matters now is what you choose to do with the truth you have. Kenji looked at his daughter with undisguised wonder. You are extraordinary, far more than I deserve. I'm not asking for a father, Lucia clarified. I've managed 17 years without one, but I am curious about the other half of who I am. I would like the chance to show you, Kenji replied, if you're willing. The conversation continued, awkward yet genuine, as Kenji asked questions about Lucia's life, her interests, her dreams. Sofia watched the interaction with complex emotions, seeing shadows of Kenji in Lucia's gestures, hearing echoes of his speech patterns in her carefully constructed arguments. When Kenji finally left, promising to return the next day for the document signing, Sofia found herself emotionally exhausted, yet strangely light, as if a burden she'd carried for 17 years had begun to shift, not disappearing but redistributing its weight. Blackwell returned, assessing them both with concern. Are you all right? I think we will be, Sofia answered honestly. Eventually. You were magnificent, he told Lucia. Both of you were. You faced down one of the most powerful men in Asia and negotiated terms that respected your dignity. That's no small achievement. As they gathered their materials to leave, Sofia paused. Dominic, she said, using his first name intentionally. Thank you for everything. Don't thank me yet, he replied. The documents aren't signed. Takashi could still change his mind. He won't, Sofia said with newfound certainty, not with Kenji finally standing up to him, and not after meeting Lucia. She made him see her as a person, not just a problem to be solved. Back at Elena's apartment, Sofia and Lucia decompressed from the intensity of the confrontation, speaking in quiet tones about the unexpected turns the meeting had taken. Do you think we can trust them? Lucia asked. After everything they've done? Trust is earned, Sofia replied. The legal documents will provide protection, but the relationship, if there is to be one, will develop on our terms, not theirs. Later that evening, Sofia stood on Elena's small balcony, watching the city lights illuminate the gathering dusk. Blackwell had left to prepare the final documents, promising to return in the morning. For the first time in 17 years, Sofia allowed herself to contemplate a future not defined by fear, a future where her identity as Sofia Tanaka could exist alongside Sofia Mendez, neither one negating the other. Her phone chimed with a message from Blackwell. Documents drafted. Hiroka's attorneys have reviewed preliminary versions, all proceeding as agreed. Sofia smiled, remembering the moment in the conference room when she'd finally looked Takashi Hiroka in the eye as an equal, not a victim. The man who had been the spectre haunting her existence for nearly 2 decades had proven to be just that. A man. Powerful, yes. Dangerous, certainly, but not omnipotent, not invincible. Lucia joined her on the balcony, wrapping a blanket around them both against the evening chill. What happens now, Mama? She asked softly. After tomorrow, when everything is signed. Sofia put her arm around her daughter's shoulders. We live, mi vida. We step out of the shadows and into the life we deserve. Will you go back to being a lawyer? Sofia considered this. Perhaps, or perhaps something new that uses those skills. Blackwell has offered me a formal position as a legal consultant for international clients. At the firm where you were, cleaning floors just weeks ago, Lucia observed with a hint of irony. Life takes unexpected turns, Sofia acknowledged. The important thing is how we navigate those turns, with courage or with fear. You've always been courageous, Mama, Lucia said, even when you were afraid. Sofia kissed her daughter's forehead. I learned courage from you, Lucia. Watching you grow into who you are, that has been my greatest privilege. As night fell completely, Sofia reflected on the journey that had brought them to this moment. From the terrified pregnant woman fleeing Japan to the confident negotiator who had faced down Takashi Hiroka, from the cleaning lady mistaken for an invisible service worker to the respected legal mind reclaiming her professional identity, the path had been arduous, but standing here with her daughter, Sofia understood that every hardship had shaped them both into something stronger than they might otherwise have been. The following morning, they met at Blackwell's main office for the formal signing. The conference room was more imposing than yesterday's location, a deliberate choice to emphasize the legal significance of the proceedings. Takashi, Kenji, and Ito arrived precisely on time, accompanied by their own legal team. The documents were reviewed one final time, specific clauses clarified, and then the moment arrived. As Sofia watched Takashi Hiroka sign his name to agreements that formally acknowledged Lucia's existence while respecting her autonomy, she felt the culmination of 17 years of struggle. Not a perfect victory. Life offered few of those, but a resolution that allowed for dignity and new beginnings. When the signing was complete, Takashi approached Sofia directly. "You have raised a remarkable daughter," he said, formality, barely masking reluctant respect, against considerable odds. "I did what any mother would do," Sofia replied, "protected my child, whatever the cost." "Not any mother," Takashi corrected, surprising her, "a formidable mother. Lucia has inherited strength from both sides of her heritage." It was as close to an apology as Takashi Hiroka would ever offer. Sofia accepted it with a gracious nod, neither forgetting the past nor allowing it to dictate the future. As the Hiroka contingent prepared to leave, Kenji lingered briefly. "May I call you to discuss Lucia's summer visit arrangements personally, not through attorneys?" "Yes," Sofia agreed. "That would be appropriate." After they departed, Blackwell approached with champagne. "To new beginnings," he proposed, pouring 3 glasses, including a small one for Lucia, "and to 2 extraordinary women who reminded me why I became a lawyer in the first place." "To transformation," Sofia added, raising her glass. "From invisible to visible, from powerless to powerful." "To truth," Lucia completed, her young face solemn yet hopeful, "the kind that sets you free." 3 months later, Sofia Mendez stood before the mirror in her new apartment, adjusting the lapel of her tailored suit. The Blackwell Richmond Associates identification badge clipped to her belt reflected her new reality. Special. Counsel for International Affairs. From the kitchen came the sounds of Lucia preparing breakfast, talking animatedly on speakerphone with her future roommate at Columbia University, where she would begin classes in the fall on a full scholarship, supplemented by the educational trust established by the Hirokas. Sofia's phone chimed with a message from Dominic Blackwell. "Chang team arriving at 10. Your expertise requested." She smiled, remembering the night he had mockingly challenged her to translate a document, never imagining the chain of events. That would follow. How quickly life could transform when fear no longer dictated one's choices. The cleaning service would arrive at 9 to prepare the apartment for Lucia's graduation party that evening. Sofia still found it slightly surreal to be on the employing end of that transaction, a small luxury that symbolized how far they had come. As she joined Lucia for breakfast, Sofia reflected on the cleaning lady who had once knelt scrubbing floors, invisible to the powerful men who passed by without a glance. That woman had never truly been invisible. She had merely been overlooked by those too arrogant to see her worth. "Ready for your big day, Counsel Tanaka?" Lucia grinned, using the title that still felt new to Sofia's ears. "Ready," Sofia confirmed, embracing her daughter, "for everything that comes next." The sunlight streamed through windows that no longer needed to be watched for threats. Outside, the city bustled with possibility, and Sofia Tanaka, once hidden in plain sight, stepped confidently into the light, not as the person she had once been, nor as the persona she had adopted to survive, but as someone new and whole, visible, powerful, and finally free. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from us.